Welcome to the Collab Podcast. My name is Michelle.
And my name is Devin.
On this podcast, we explore concepts of self-mastery and community collaboration
through in-depth panel discussions and intimate interviews with dance's most prominent figures.
Yeah, she my peanut butter jelly snack, pull it, ride, bossy, painting. That's my sunshine when it's raining. That's my boo, yeah. When I'm all alone, she pulled through.
Today's guest is nothing short of remarkable. Jordan, or as we lovingly refer to him as Jordy, began his career by dancing with the prominently known Filipino folk dance group Pasacat. After spending a few years learning formal dance techniques, Jordan joined Connections, a junior team based out of Otay Ranch High School. From there, he danced with teams Crucial Element, Pride Rise Dance Crew, and RYPE. Jordan then became one of the founding members of the Box Dance Studio, and his unique dance style and crazy ear for musicality landed him a leadership role as co-artistic director for junior competition team RAW. From there, Jordan eventually became artistic director for RYPE, the Box Dance Studio's adult competition team. Jordan's passion and his intricate approach to dance made him a perfect fit for award-winning adult competition team 220 Second to None, where he spent the remaining years of his dance career. Aside from the popularity and respect he gained amongst his career through his creativity, Jordan also earned several accolades at Showstopper, a national dance competition based out of Anaheim, California. Jordan gave back to the dance community as a box dance studio instructor, sharing his craft and looking to inspire as many dancers as he could. Jordan then made the tough decision to put his passion for dance on hold to pursue the brave feat of enlisting in the United States Navy. Jordan currently lives in Rota, Spain on the U.S. Naval Base with his wife, Jane, but is back for today's episode. We are overwhelmed with joy and gratitude at the opportunity to sit down with someone who has been such an inspiration in our lives. Please enjoy this episode with our brother, Jordan Banares.
Awesome. Well, welcome to another episode of the Community Lab Podcast. We are so excited because we are here with our very dear brother, Jordan. Hey. So for those of you that don't know Jordan, Jordan's been dancing for probably over a decade, I would say. Am I right?
Yeah.
I should know because you're my brother, but I don't.
I'd say maybe like 13 years.
13 years. Jordan actually took a break to enlist in the U.S. Navy and serve our country. So thank you so much for doing that. A pretty drastic change. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about that when we take a deeper dive into our discussion. Jordan's back in San Diego for the holidays, and we just wanted to take the opportunity to spend some time with him and just pick his brain a little bit about life after dance.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, Jordan, you started your dance career in Pasacat, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
You and Devin.
I'm so sorry, but Dylan's chair keeps squeaking.
Okay, good.
So Devin started dancing, and then I remember showing up for rehearsal, and then Devin was like really into it because her friends were in it, and then Auntie Joji, the company director at the time, I think she still is, right?
Yeah.
So she was like, "I want to dance," and I'm like, "No, I don't want to dance." So the next rehearsal, I was like, you know what? This might be, this might be different. This might be cool because, if Devin's doing it, I'm able to do it as well and be as cool as her. Next rehearsal, I ended up doing it. And then from there, it was just, me and Devin doing Pasacat. We were there for
an X amount of junior shows and then at least one extravaganza.
XXX Tentacion.
Wait, what?
I'm just kidding.
So that was something that was your first exposure to dance, right?
I actually remember that differently. I don't remember if I had any friends already on Pasacat, and I think that's maybe why I had asked you, so that I could have someone to interact with, someone that I felt comfortable dancing with. Yeah. I think I did really enjoy my first rehearsal because everybody was so friendly, but I don't think I had quite made any friends yet. So I was excited to share my experience with you to see if it was something that you're interested in, and luckily you were.
I remember that you were like, come on, Jordan, do this. And I'm over here like, no. And then the next practice, that's when I was like, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Like, all cool and stuff. I'm like, I don't know if they can handle me, you know what I'm saying?
Well, it almost like...
I'm just kidding.
You're joking, but I think you became one of, I want to say this in such a way, but I think you became a very strong member to Pasacat. I think you contributed a lot in terms of your skill level and your advancement. I know that Auntie Joji really cared for your progression in Pasacat and gave you a lot of opportunities to explore like what you could do as a Filipino folk dance member, doing tinikling and singkil, giving you those highlighted roles.
She was like one of the first people to have me learn to embrace humility. It was one of the practices. I remember we're outside of the studio and we're on the big stage and we're practicing tinikling, and then I just couldn't get it right. I wasn't used to like having her keep drilling me and having me practice. Like, no, we're not gonna move on until we get this right. So I was like, can I use the bathroom? She was like, yeah, go use the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom, I just sat on the toilet and I just started sobbing. I was crying. I was like, I don't want to freaking do this. Like, how come she's not yelling at Devin?
But she did.
Not yelling at Devin. And I'm like crying there. I'm like, you know what? I can't go back out there and cry. And then I realized as soon as I got back out there, I could see that she saw that it was like upset. That's when I learned. I was like, you know what? In order for me to, move on, I gotta push through it and keep practicing. Like Devin's famous quote, practice makes practice, but perfect practice makes perfect.
I can't take credit for that quote, but I did use it a lot. So I don't want the person who actually said it to be like, that's not you.
Shout out to you, whoever you are. I think I learned a lot from that. That was like the perfect foundation for me and Devin to venture out and then, continue our journey.
So I think that something that you two probably didn't realize, and maybe you did because we were really open about it, but the family really took pride in the fact that you guys were dancing for Pasacat. Not only because you were entertaining, but you were in a way sort of giving back to the community and also learning about our Filipino heritage. And I know that was really important to mom and dad, and it was really important to me. And I actually forced you guys to perform at my wedding because I was so proud of your accomplishments as dancers and also just wanted to bring like that piece of heritage into our wedding. And I remember you guys were a little bit resistant about performing at my wedding.
I mean, the only part that we were resistant about is that the actual dance and kill was like, the prince was fighting for the princess and they were gonna get married after.
You the princess and you the prince, right?
Yeah, so.
But they were the main characters, and it was really important for me to sort of showcase to our family and really JP's family too, because, my husband and his family didn't know my siblings as well. And so it was a little bit kind of like, I'm going to show off my siblings. This is what they do, and we're connected with our heritage in this way, and it's really beautiful. And so I think mom and dad and me really took pride in the fact that you guys were doing something and really contributing.
Yeah, I think being a part of Pasacat, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this too, Jordy, but when we were dancing in Pasacat, I think that was the most I had ever felt Filipina. Like I was the most aware of being Filipina American when we were on Pasacat, and we were going to these like Filipino centered events. We would do a lot of community showcases and seeing other people that looked like us that were doing the same thing, because I think before I was very blind to being Filipina. I was just like, I'm a person, and that's pretty much the extent of it. But being able to like go deep into the different, what did they call them? The different suites. Yeah,
I definitely agree. From like when we started, we were kind of like oblivious to what was going on. We were just kind of like, I have something to, tell my friends, like brag about and be like, yeah, I dance with them. Being on Pasacat and dancing throughout, the years that we were on it, especially those particular dances, they weren't just dances. They had like a story behind it. Regardless if like there was 6 people in that part of that choreography or 2 people or even a solo, it still represented a story behind those different pieces. I never realized that until, you know, Auntie Joji would say it, and she would, like, you know, tell you you're a bird and you're flying away and all that stuff. And, you know, we just thought at that time, you know, oh, it's funny because, you know, she's joking around, you're a bird, you're flying, whatever, all that stuff. But actually, like, going down into detail and actually dissecting, like, what she was really talking about, I learned a lot in Pasacat. And you can not only share that, you know, with other people that dance in Filipino folk dance, but you can share it to, like, you know, people who are unaware of it and people that want to learn.
I think so too. I think that and I'm going to speak for Dylan, but I think for Dylan and I, you know, I think in a lot of ways we felt left out from that because, you know, we weren't in Pasacat, and that's a special connection that the two of you will always have. That was something that you guys got to do together, and I think that that's really amazing. So on top of, you know, having that special connection and also just, you know, being able to give back to the community in that very unique way, I think another sort of meaningful thing that you got out of Pasacat was you actually met your wife through Pasacat, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Well, and then we discovered later, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, we discovered later that she actually performed at my wedding too,
yes.
Right? And she was part of the...
I mean, you know, I had to work some strings, you know, get her to perform, all that stuff. So
I think it's funny how that all worked out because originally, because we were so kind of weirded out about the prince and princess roles in that dance, I was supposed to be the umbrella girl. And I had learned the parts and everything. And I remember Auntie Joji asking me, like, every 5 minutes, like, don't you want to be the princess role? It's not weird. Like, it's just a dance. Like, don't worry about it. But I was so resistant just because I didn't believe in my skill level to do it. And I saw that you had picked up on it so quickly. And for those of you who are not familiar with Singkil, it's basically like this cracked out version of tinikling. Yes. Because you have not only the 2 sticks, but you have another 2 sticks laying on top of it. I mean, we'll put some links in the show notes so that you guys can really see how it all works. But it's really intense. So to see you take on that challenge, it was exciting. But for me, I just couldn't picture myself doing it. But, you know, our sister was only going to get married one time. I finally was just like, okay, the universe, right? In all its wonderfulness and all its magic, it helped me move towards that decision so that Jane could be a part of that dance, right? Like, because if I didn't change my mind, then Jane may not have been a part of that performance. So it all worked out. Well, and just to go back, like just to backtrack for the record, we did ask Dylan to be a part of Pasacat. I think Auntie Joji had tried to recruit him. Yes, numerous times. So Dylan did have the opportunity, but you know, his time would come later. So
I mean, me and Devin were jealous that you took, you know, chicken dance classes.
What? Chicken dance classes?
She was taking classes, remember?
Chicken dance?
Learning the chicken dance, you know.
No. What? No.
But yeah, I mean, going back to meeting Jane, so I believe Jane was dancing. I mean, she thinks that, you know, she was there before me. She was there before me, so.
She's here and she's saying that she was.
Yeah. Angrily. So we were, you know, we knew each other. I guess we were acquaintances at the time. You know, I was friends, of course, with all the boys, and you know, she's friends with all the girls. So it was kind of like girls have cooties.
Really? Even at like 13 or 14?
I think there's some discrepancy in the cootie story.
So every rehearsal, I see her, she sees me. She was like, "Oh, I'm crushing on Jordy, big boy." At that time, she didn't tell me. 15 years later, we're married.
I'm sure that there is some details that are missing.
There is details, but it's still mind-blowing, so surreal to me that from where we started, from Pasacat, and then throughout our years being friends, and she's doing her own thing and I'm doing my own thing, for some reason, you know, God just had that perfect alignment. And then I was like, want to get married? Sure.
Well, and the reason why this is so important is because I think, I don't know, I'm making assumptions, so this is the time to clarify, but I think that Jane played a big part in sort of your shift from dance, right? Because you wanted to do something that was more adulting. and just sort of make a future for yourself and make a future for you and what you hope to be with Jane, right?
Yeah.
So let's back up a little bit. You know, we've talked a lot about Jane, we've talked a lot about Pasacat, but after Pasacat, that actually propelled you to dance in more hip hop. So you danced on Connections again with Devin, which was something that Dylan and I got left out of again. So special connection. So you guys dance on Connections together. And then I got the opportunity to dance with you on Crucial Element, which was a lot of fun. And I remember being really nervous because that was my first team that I ever auditioned for. And you went and you killed it. And I was like, how does he do it? I don't know how he does it.
I think you're hyping me up too much. I think it did really bad.
That's how I felt. I was like, dang, how am I going to follow in this guy's footsteps?
Well, the funny story about the whole Connections transitioning from Pasacat to Connection is that as soon as we got into high school, Devin and I are 2 years apart. So when she was a freshman, I was still in middle school, my 7th grade. When she was a junior, then I started. And then that's when you started, right?
Yeah, I think I had auditioned at the end of sophomore year or the beginning of junior year. And it was difficult because I was very much trying to please other people. I think that I had auditioned for Connections as an incoming freshman. I didn't make it. I was supposed to audition again my sophomore year, but then I ended up going to my friend's dentist appointment and getting carne asada fries instead of like listening to my gut. Yeah, and going to audition because
I mean, that sounds like a pretty good decision.
Yeah. I mean, looking back, it was just kind of one of those moments where I was afraid because none of my other friends were doing it. So I was the only one that wanted to pursue Connections. So I think, again, it was really exciting that when you started high school, that you wanted to be on Connections as well, because I felt like I had a friend to turn to.
Well, the funny story with that, the way I remember it, as soon as I got into my freshman year, Devin was like, hey, you want to audition for Connections? And I'm over here like, I already did Pasacat. I'm already here. You want me to do something else with you? And I'm like, okay. I was like, you know what? I'll take the workshops. Why not? You know, if I can do Pasacat, if I can learn, you know,
how to be a bird and fly.
Yeah. I can learn how to be a gorilla and stomping the yard. I don't know. Sorry, I was trying to find.
That's a bad reference.
Yeah. But I think that was the funny thing. I thought that I could do Pasacat and hip hop, but as soon as I started learning more in Connections, I was like, wow. Like I felt like my whole mentality was like rejuvenated with a whole new scenery instead of like, you know, keeping it traditional, which I'm not saying anything bad about.
Yeah. At that time, it was like right around America's Best Dance Crew's first season. So Jabberwockies was a big thing. And seeing that, I think, excited us. And so it made being on a hip hop team seem a little bit more cool. At least that's how I looked at it.
The bright colored bandanas.
Oh my gosh.
The mismatched shirts, the jeans, the denim.
Only dancing to like whole counts.
Yeah. The Nike dunks with bright swooshes and all that stuff.
That was a thing.
Bright laces, all that stuff.
Well, and Pasacat, I think you guys both alluded to this earlier, really gave you the basis and the foundation to become a better dancer. And it really, you know, again, I'm making assumptions here, it probably helped you become a better performer, but having that experience on Connections, experience. That's my French. That's the French word for experience. Having that experience on Connections probably allowed you to be more creative, right? So you already had the performance under your belt, the performance aspect, but being on Connections opened up sort of your creativity door. Would you say that that's pretty accurate?
Yeah, agreeing with you. And then I'm just saying for myself, but I don't know for Devin, but Pasacat, as a boy, you dance very masculine and very stiff and very proper. And then transitioning into hip hop where there's basically no
boundaries.
No boundaries. So it's kind of like you're free to like, you know, loosen up your arms, loosen up your body, your neck. So that was like the hardest transition for me because I was so used to, you know, having my shoulders down, chest up, all that stuff, and chin up. And over here, everybody's like octopuses.
Yeah.
You know, loose. So that the hardest transition for me.
I love that you brought that up, though, that there was that transition of having like these stigmas that you had to adhere to in traditional folk dance, because I had never thought about it that way. Girls had to be very, I mean, our arms and our movements, they had to be strong in terms of the picture, but you also had to be soft and delicate. So I had never thought about that, but I think that's probably another reason why we were so drawn to hip hop, because the lines were blurred. You could do whatever it was that the choreographer was asking from you, and Connections was a really great experience in terms of the number of choreographers that they tried to bring in. Like, I think Robbie had taught Robbie Del Rosario.
Yeah.
Carlos Morris.
Yes.
And then Sony Coladia. And of course, Eric Molina was directing. Just like these icons from that time, Connections had access to. So that was another reason why it was such an exciting experience for us.
Shout out to Eric, because he was like, I think if Eric wasn't there for Connections, I don't think we would be those well-rounded performers that we are. The funny story behind the whole transitioning, because when I was thinking it, I was like, I don't know if I should tell a story, but
Just
tell a story.
We'll just cut it out if it's not a good story.
So the stigma, you said, just the male has to be very masculine, very stiff. So I remember learning the workshop piece, and then the choreographer said, like, oh yeah, with your right foot, you're gonna stomp, right? When I think of stomp, is I hear Auntie Joji, you gotta stomp. Like, you have to, they need to hear your feet on the freaking ground, overpowering the music that's playing. So I'm like over here trying to stomp. As soon as the song plays and we're doing the choreo, I'm like, all right, I'm getting this. And then my friend at the time, she was like, she tapped me on the shoulder. She just tapped me on the shoulder, and she was like, why are you stomping so hard? And I was like,
Embarrassed.
I was so embarrassed. I was like, damn, I'm stomping hard. Stomp the hard.
Shout out to Auntie Joji.
Yeah, so I think that's what triggered. I was like, okay, maybe I need to tone it down a bit.
It made you aware.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, if the choreographer tells me something, some words may seem the same as what, Auntie Joji said, but it could mean totally different in the hip hop world. I think it was like towards the end of boot camp. I mean, we were getting ready to, graduate. I think it was like 2 days before we graduated. And they sat us all down, because we finally, understand how, the Navy works. Sitting down, they're like, all right, I want everybody to, stand up, tell us your name, where you're from, what you like to do for fun. And I remember I stood up and I was like, I love dancing. Everybody looked at me and they're like, dances? And I remember it triggered like 3 other people, because 3 other people were hesitant about like saying that I love dancing. And they're like, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm from like Michigan, or I'm from like Idaho. And it's like, I love dancing too.
That's awesome.
So it was pretty cool just to take away everything that I've been reflecting on while I was in boot camp, from like Pasacat all the way up to where I am now, and just not be afraid to tell people what I like to do and have them judge me. Because starting from when Auntie Joji taught me about like humility, I just started not giving a F about what people said about me. If I like to dance, I like to dance. So just having that confidence. And then after like the whole thing, we talked about it, and we're like, yeah, here's my contact. Like, if we ever meet up in like the States or anywhere in like the country, like I'll hit you up and we'll freestyle, or we're like, we'll get together. So it was pretty cool to know that there was other people in the room
that's so cool,
that had that same interest as me. And
so we're going to fast forward a little bit, because we talked a little bit about Crucial Element. You spent a little bit of time on Crucial Element with me, and then you and I left Crucial Element because our dad, we've talked about this story a million times, our dad wanted us to perform at an event that he was collaborating with on for Vuco. It's owned by a Filipino, and they were making this coconut vodka that was coming out of the Philippines. And they actually tried to get the Jabberwockies, because Jabberwockies were big at the time, and they weren't able to get the Jabberwockies, and so they got us instead, which I don't know if that's a fair trade-off, but we quickly formed a dance team together. You guys brought in Eric Molina because he was such a huge inspiration to you on Connections, and Eric helped us bring in some additional dancers. We had a lot of dancers from Connections, and we performed at this event, and we realized that we had so much fun together that we decided to start our own team. And so that became Pride Rice Dance Crew. And then Pride Rice Dance Crew became RYPE. And then RYPE became sort of this entity of the Box Dance Studio. And you actually got the opportunity to not only teach at the Box, but you worked the front desk and you also got to direct RYPE, which I remember being a really big deal because it was, for me as a dancer on RYPE, really cool to see you in that creative aspect, you know, because like I said, I didn't have that connection with you. When we were on Crucial Element together, there was someone else, you know, the directors of Crucial Element giving us the choreography. So being able to see you in the element of RYPE was really cool for me because I got to really experience your creativity. Yeah. How was your experience on RYPE and sort of being in that director role?
And Raw.
And Raw. Oh, that's right. You directed Raw. I forgot. I forgot about that.
I was like on a dancer high, and I wanted to create. I was watching like, you know, videos, The Company. I was watching SG. I was just watching a bunch of dance videos. Mamba mentality right there. I'm gonna get RYPE all the way up there. I'm gonna get the studio and Raw all the way up there. It was also stressful too. I mean, I can't say that, you know, it was a perfect life as a director for RYPE. That rhymed. That was a nice little rap. But it was stressful. I mean, everything came in full circle, becoming the director. And everybody loved hanging out with each other. And that was definitely my favorite experience being a director. The relationship that you have with those people is just becoming more of a stronger bond. And it's cool to see, like, not being the director and not dancing anymore, that you still have that same connection with that person, like, after all those years. And it's just like the legacy showcase that we were at, seeing people from RYPE and, you know, seeing people from, you know, when Pride Rice was happening. It was just good to see those faces, and it just sparked so many memories. It was pretty cool.
I mean, I'm sure it was stressful. It probably didn't help that you had, two really bossy sisters putting pressure on you and telling you what to do all the time. But I think that you handled it really well.
It was all preparation for the military.
Exactly. You didn't know it. We didn't know it either, but we were preparing you for boot camp. It was a really sad day for Devin and I. And it was one of those really bittersweet moments when you told us that you were going to take a little bit of a step back, not necessarily from the studio, but from RYPE, because you were going to pursue 220. You know, Devin and I think, really wanted to be supportive of that. But at the same time, it meant that we were going to lose sort of this quality time that we had with you. Yeah. And so that was a really rough transition, I think, for both Devin and I personally, but it was a very exciting time for you because you were starting something new. You were on a team that you had worked really hard to get onto. And so tell us a little bit about your experience on 220.
Prior to the whole 220 thing, originally I wasn't going to do 220. I'm the director of RYPE. I'm also the co-director with Devin for Raw, and, you know, I have the studio, I have, you know, my friends. Everything is in place. Super Galactic auditions came up, and I remember I was going to do the Super Galactic auditions with my best friend Alan Gonzalez, and then he bailed on me, and then I was like, all right, well, I'm already here at Culture Shock. There's no point for me to go back home and not do this. So I remember auditioning for SG, and I told myself, I said, if I don't make it, then I'm just going to stay with RYPE. And, you know, I didn't make it, you know, unfortunately. And then, what do you know, 220 had their auditions the week after. And I forgot who talked me into it. I think it was either a friend or I talked myself into it. And I was like, you know what? I know 220, but, you know, they're not, that everybody wanted to be on SG at that time. And 220 was just right there on the rise. I auditioned for 220, and it was pretty cool because, you know, one of the, you know, mentors that we met in Connections, Stephanie Pasacat, or now Sidella.
Yeah, she's married now.
She was like, "You're gonna audition?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna audition." I shouldn't dwell on not making it on SG because I think I was having a hard time because I was like so used to, like, you know, learning and making things, and then just to have that that hit of humility of just not making it. I was like, damn, this sucks.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, correct me if I'm wrong, but every audition that you went to, you basically got it. You made the team.
Yeah, so it was kind of the mentality like, oh, I'm gonna get this. So that was kind of like a reality check for me. And then 220 came up, audition, then I found out that I made it, and I was happy. I was like, maybe there's somebody else that believes in what I can do. Maybe SG didn't see anything in me, but somebody in 220 saw something. And then my experience throughout 220, I danced with them from 2012 to 2017, so about 5 years. It was the greatest experience, and I'm very blessed that 220's taught me so many things.
I think it all worked out that you made it on 220, and I just want to touch back on like the auditions thing, because I think this is just a general note for any of the listeners that are tuning in, is that auditions can be a very complex process. And I know you were saying like, oh, 220 saw something in me that SG didn't, or SG didn't see what I could bring to the table. It really is dependent on the directors at the time, what they're looking for. Of course, dance and your skill level is a huge factor, but it can also be how you work with some of the veterans, or the number of, like the ratio of girls to boys, what kind of cast they're trying to create for that upcoming season. If you go to an audition and you don't make it, please let this be a perfect example of don't give up, because Jordan saw like, okay, this freaking hurts, but there's also an opportunity for me to try again. And 220 ended up shaping a huge portion of that last bit of dance that you ended up doing.
Yeah, to go off of that, the whole audition process, they want to see that friendship and that bond that you have towards other people, that connections. If you don't make it, always try to absorb and listen to what the directors on why they didn't take you. Don't have the mentality and your pride block the fact that, oh, they didn't choose me because I didn't do so well. Maybe you did get the piece right, but maybe it's not that time. Maybe artistically, or, they can see it like through your emotions that you're not ready. So always embrace what they say and learn from it, because in their eyes, they appreciate you because you volunteered to do it. It's a decision that you made. And they're like, you know what? I'll remember that person, because no matter how many times they didn't make it, they still showed up.
I think a lot of people don't appreciate everything that goes on in a dancer's emotions and mind, right? Because we go through a lot. So all you're seeing as dancers is you're seeing the glitz and the glamour. You're seeing that 5 minutes on stage. You're seeing just that snapshot in time. But internally, we're going through a lot of emotions. Where you're, like you said, when you're going through an audition, you tend to take that a little bit personally if you don't make it, and you're like, is it me? Is it something I did? And we have to remember that it's sort of this conflict, because I don't want to say the whole part, but a big part of being a dancer is a little bit narcissistic, right? Because you want to be on stage and you want to perform for people. You want people to see you. But at the same time, you're sort of struggling internally, because when you go to an audition or you're in a setting like that, you have to remove yourself and not make it about you, right? And so it's this constant struggle. Like when you're on stage, it's about me and dancing with this amazing team. And then when you're at an audition, you're like, it can't be just about me. It has to be, you have to sort of look inside yourself. And I think that's, you touched on something really powerful there. And I think a lot of people don't realize sort of the conflict that we go through as dancers. We've talked about a lot today, and I think one of the things that I want to touch on is our younger brother Dylan has actually followed in your footsteps and now dances for 220. And a lot of times we joke around, and I know that like people on 220 joke around too about when they see Dylan dance. And for the longest time, I think there was a period where you both danced very similarly, and you both looked the same. Maybe that was a little bit of a struggle for Dylan, but I mean, how does that make you feel watching your brother sort of fill these shoes and sort of follow the pathway that you've paved for him?
I didn't prepare for this one.
Well, just talk about your feelings and towards Dylan. I mean,
to be honest,
do you love him? Are you pissed at him?
Okay, the one thing that I learned in 220 is that when you see dancers from like different teams, like you can fanboy them all the time, but as soon as they enter your team and you start learning from them, it's just, you get this, it's like an inside joke within like the dance community. You just look at them, you're like, damn, you're so annoying. Like, why are you so freaking annoying? Annoying as in like, why are you so damn good?
Yeah.
Can you just stop and give me a chance to like, you know,
to make it in this world?
Yeah, exactly. So I think when I just watch Dylan, it's kind of like that annoying thing. Like, you're just so freaking, like, I hate you, but I love you. You're a freaking dope dancer, but I'm better.
He makes you want to be better.
Yeah, like he's doing these things and you're just watching him, you're like I can do it. I really want to start running and chasing after him, but I think my time has came to an end throughout dance. I mean, back home in Spain, I always talk to Jane and I'm always like playing music out loud. I'm always like freestyling. I'm like, what about this? You like this? And she was like, I don't know. Sometimes she hypes me up and she's like, yeah, I want to see you freestyle. It's been a while. Coming back here and seeing Dylan do what he knows to do and what he's trying to pursue as a career, it makes me happy. It makes me super happy to see that he's doing what he wants to do and nobody's gonna stop him. He's annoying. I mean, he's
annoying.
He's talented. He went from dancing Pride Rice because he just got fathered in because, you know,
he was our brother.
Yeah. And then he continued to dance throughout, you know, Pride Rice. He took Devin's class every Saturday morning, right?
He worked his butt off, yeah.
I think it was Friday nights, but...
Friday nights. Any class within, like, Roots, Raw, and, like, sometimes RYPE. If we needed somebody and somebody was missing, be like, hey, Dylan, you gotta learn this real quick. Even though he was, like, the youngest out of, like, the whole group. Just to see him grow into what he is now today, and he's still trying to push to, like, have this as a career, that's really, like... Annoying. Like... I think for me, I wanted to, you know, pursue dance as a career. And I know that Devin wanted to as well. You as well, as like the box dance studio.
Definitely.
Things, you know, bumpy roads kind of got in the way. Unfortunately, you know, we don't have the studio now. But I think it just makes me really happy to see Dylan continuing, I want to say our legacy, but he's like...
But he's also stepping into his own.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of Dylan, the two of you took home some pretty serious awards. So, you know, your very controlling sisters actually forced you to choreograph a competition set for Showstoppers in Anaheim. And you and Dylan, so the first time you guys went, you went in as Box Barber Bros. You did sort of a barber set. Jane designed a really cool costume for you guys. Yeah. And you guys came home with first place double platinum.
I think it was first place platinum, the first one. Yeah. And then the second time, I remember you guys were already up there. Dylan just got off school.
You guys were late.
I picked Dylan up. And I remember it was just me and him driving all the way up to Anaheim.
From San Diego.
San Diego. We booked it. And then we were late, so they had to push us back like two acts. Yeah. And then showed up. I don't know if it was the first day that I ripped my pants.
That was for Box Barber Bros. Box Barber Bros, you ripped your pants. But for the second time you guys went to Showstopper, that was really stressful because you were saying Dylan had just gotten out of school. You guys drove as quickly as you could from San Diego to Anaheim. We had to talk to the MC at Showstopper to have them bump you because you guys were running late. You guys came running into the competition stage and jumped right on stage like you were the next act. Yeah. And you guys had to kind of just...
I remember just driving up and we're like, all right, Dylan, we're going to practice. Practicing in the car, you know, some choreo changed and whatnot. As soon as we were parking, I was like, all right, if they give us time, we're going to have like only like 30 seconds to, you know, practice. As soon as we saw you guys are next. And then we're like, oh, damn, we don't have any.
You don't have any time to breathe.
We performed and we ended up getting...
First place platinum. Again.
Yeah. Or maybe it was double. I don't know. Maybe I'm just hyping myself up to get a double.
One of the competitions was a double platinum. So you've had some pretty good time in your career. And one more question, Devin, I don't know if you have any additional questions, but will we ever see Box Barber Bros or BMV again? And the red That's what you guys called yourself. It made no sense. But
Like the DMV. I don't know. You guys were obsessed with the DMV. So
Banares motor vehicles. I don't know why you guys came up with that name, but you wanted to be called BMV, and so we let you.
Yeah, personally, I would like for me and Dylan to possibly like light that fire again and dance one more time. Maybe, a couple more shows, a couple more double platinums, make crystals. But I'm not telling you guys when, but there's a possibility that Banares Bros are gonna be back.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I know that we've got to wrap this up, and we didn't even get to dive into like you choreographing for 220, but maybe all these other points that we want to talk about we can make into a second episode.
Bonus episode.
Yeah. I do think it needs to be said, though, that as much as you feel maybe annoyed that you weren't able to scratch that itch of going so far with dance, I feel like Dylan's journey was inspired by you. I mean, he saw me and Ata doing a lot of things in dance, but he always looked up to you as his big brother. So to see you out there with 220 and just really like embracing yourself artistically and challenging yourself, I think that's what made Dylan push as hard as he did, is because he wanted to catch up to you. I don't want to speak for you, but I think that's such a huge accomplishment, is that you really inspired Dylan to go after it, and the fact that he hasn't stopped, I think, has a lot to do with you.
He's more than like caught up to me. He's already passed me. But I also see him him looking back and trying to say like, "Come on, Kuya, come on,
catch up."
Like catch up and chase
yeah.
Because it was like me and Dylan, and then we were racing to something. Like you and I were like trying to race into you were trying to go into like the next thing, like PGN, Chronology, and Team Naku, and I wanted to be that with you, and to have Dylan to follow me. And now that he's passed me, he's like, "Come on, Kuya, you tired?" And I'm like over here like, "Yeah, I'm tired," but like I can see that he's trying to urge me to keep going with him. I think that's like my favorite thing. He's like really trying to get me to dance with him. And then in my head, I'm like, I am going to dance, but I'm not going to tell him that I'm going to start dancing again. Because, I don't know how many more years he's going to dance. He's going to realize that I'm going to be dancing with JT and be like, "What's up? How'd you get there?"
Dance is a very powerful thing. It inspires a lot of people.
I think JT is done, though. No more tours from JT yet.
One of the things that we ask all of the people that we interview here at Community Lab Podcast, there's a lot of negativity in the world, but Devin and I find that dance always grounds us and is really sort of our safe space. And so we want to know kind of what your thoughts are of what's good in the dance community right now.
I think what's good in the community is this right here. I'm not saying it because you guys are my sisters and I'm trying to win you guys so you can get me something for Christmas or something. But
you're not reading the script that we put out in front of you with the
$20 attached to it.
No, but I truly believe that this podcast, and I really hope kind of going back to the studio, it's unfortunate that we don't have the studio anymore, but we've impacted so many lives. If this podcast can be almost like the studio, people can listen and understand what we went through as dancers and the struggles, the hardships, all that stuff. I think this podcast is really another dance studio for the listeners' ears, the dancers' ears, because it can help them for whatever reason, for whatever audition, for whatever piece that they're trying to be in. This is going to help them a lot. So I think this podcast is definitely the greatest thing for the dance community, and I hope everybody can just listen to it.
Thanks, Jord.
people can just speak their minds. People can listen to it and be like, Devin and Michelle, like, I get what they're saying because I went through that last night or I went through that last week.
Thank you, Jordan. That's really kind of you, and I hope that we can live up to that mission of serving the community in such a different way and being, the greatest that we can be for the community.
Thanks for your time today, Jordan. Thanks for your time today, Jordan. We loved having you, and it's good to have the crew back, the 4 siblings. It's good to have the 4 siblings back in action.
Except Dylan's not in the room. He left.
He's here. He's just not in the room. Yeah. So,
well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's pretty cool. Just speaking.
Yeah.
Speaking my mind about things.
Till next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the Collab podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, please show your support by leaving a review on iTunes.
And be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts.
The conversation continues over on Instagram and YouTube with highlights from today's episode.
Painting. That's my sunshine when it's raining. That's my boo, yeah. When I'm all alone, she pulled through. So when I catch that wave, we gon' move. But then again, we probably won't.